friends, Jerry Rosa here at the Rosa String Works Workshop. Welcome to another edition of Shop Talk. The first thing I want to say is thank you all for watching the Shop Talks. Unfortunately, they're not being watched all that much compared to the build videos, which one should expect that, I guess. But I would encourage more of you to do that. I hope you'll tune in and stay with it. I think those of you that have watched them have found them very helpful, packed with lots of tips and tricks. First thing I want to say on this one is that the winner of that Get Joe Banjo, or the Banjitar Banjo, however you prefer to think of it, from the Glary Company has not reported in yet. We announced the winner in the previous Shop Talk, and they have not sent us an email to tell us where to ship it. So I'm going to give them one more week, and if they don't show up, then we're going to have to send it out to someone else. I'm sure Melissa will put the winner's name up here on the screen so that you will know who you are if you have not found out that you're the winner yet. But I encourage you all to go check out the previous Shop Talk where we did announce the winner. The next thing I want to talk about is a brand new shop innovation, a brand new, it's almost invention. It's not, because other people have thought of it. I'm sure you could buy this exact same thing at Stuart McDonald, except it would look totally different and more refined and more finished. But you'd have to pay $2,500 for it. Just jabbing a little bit at StewMac. StewMac, I love StewMac. I'm making fun of them. They're a great company. But what is this, you ask? And I made this just yesterday, as a matter of fact. Well, it's a clamp, as you can see. I haven't even opened it since gluing this up last night. I glued this piece of leather in here. That ought to give you a clue. This is leather. It's for holding necks of guitars. You can put the guitar in here. Then we put some pad on top of that, of course, and clamp it down. You know, this would be held in a big vise so that it's stationary. And then you think, well, what's all the rest of this? Well, this is a handle to loosen this up, and then you can rotate the guitar 90 degrees from top dead center. So this would be laying flat, either you know, more than likely with the top up, although I'm going to make an adapter where I can turn it the other way for this. And then you can turn it 180 degrees from side to side. And that allows me to work on them in all positions that way. And then if I make the adapter where I can turn it over also. Now this does come apart, but there's a lot of depth there, so I don't have to worry about that coming apart. It's not going to happen. You just keep it pushed together and you tighten this down. And it's very solid. I've already tested it. It works absolutely great. You'll see it in upcoming videos. In fact, you'll see it in the video where I am rebuilding this guitar. And this guitar is almost finished now. But seriously, this, honestly, not exaggerating, was one of the most challenging rebuilds I've ever done. You know, my buddy Jeff up in Oregon says that it's remastered. In a sense, this one is remastered plus, because this one, I guarantee you, is now better than it came from the factory, at least in my opinion. You know, it's got some issues still. There's some little cracks and things that I'll show you in the build where you see this. This is a J45 Deluxe Gibson, and you'll see it in a future series down the road. I'm sure it's going to be a fairly long video, because truly this was pretty much a rebuild, and I know you're going to be excited to see that video when it does come out. I think it's really going to be one of my best ever videos. At least that's my hope. Now let's get into the questions and answers, and I don't have any idea what's in here. I haven't looked at them yet, so I will read each one and we'll see where we go with them. We heard from Gary Jackson again, and he says thank you so much for the deer antler. He's attached a picture of the first Stratocaster nut that he made from the Rosa antler, and I'm sure Melissa will show you what that looks like. Gary, glad it worked for you. Thank you for continuing to watch my videos. We have a question from, can't say it, Mantaniega. I think this is the possibly the last name, or maybe it's a combination of their name and making it a username. Mantaniega is the name. The title of the email is Refinish an ES335 TDW in Sunburst. Everyone says you cannot refinish a walnut colored semi-hollow body in anything other than a solid color. But I know if anyone could make it happen, it would be Jerry. Apparently his first name is Louis, L-U-I-S. Well, Louis, I don't really feel like I'm the finish expert at all. I truly don't. If I've given you that impression, I'm sorry, because it's not true. But I am a very determined person, and I don't feel like it should be that big of a challenge to refinish it. Now, having said that, sunbursts are very difficult to do. Sunbursts are not easy to match, especially. I wouldn't even attempt to match it. But if you really wanted to re-sunburst it, I don't see as that would be a problem. All you'd have to do is scrape off the old finish, sand it down to basically bare wood, and go right at it like you've seen me do on sunbursting the mandolins and things like that. It would not be difficult to do. I would start out with the Phoebing's leather dyes myself, is the way I would do it. I usually start off with that bright yellow, but it wouldn't have to be the bright yellow. You could start off with a light brown if you really wanted to. Just use all browns and sunburst it that way. You can sunburst it any way you can imagine, actually. You know, just use the leather dyes and the alcohols. Then the alcohols would remove the center section and you just blend it outward and get to the darker and darker area. It would not be difficult at all to do it, and there is no reason why you couldn't do it on any instrument. I don't care what instrument it is, you know. Then, of course, it always adds a nice touch to take your darkest color then and go around it with your airbrush and touch up the edges and things. Of course, it's a lot of work. You know, you have to scrape the binding clean and all that thing. So, you know, it could be done though. And I appreciate you having that much confidence in me that I could do it. I am sure I could do it. Would it look like a factory job? Probably not, to be perfectly honest with you. But it would look like a job I did. Thank you, Louis, for the confidence and for watching the videos. Our next email is from Rick Bartolo. Rick also gave me the phonetic pronunciation of his name. Rick, yours is one of the easy ones. But I appreciate it anyway, because you never know. But Rick said he really enjoys our videos, and he's thanking me for putting them out. He's been repairing guitars and valve amps for 24 years. You know, repairing full-time for the last 14 years. So, wow, Rick, you've got a lot of experience. Rick is from Australia, by the way. He thought my homemade thickness sander, that machine that I'm pointing to right there, was such a good idea. He decided to have his brother, who works in apparently a machine shop type atmosphere, to build one for him. And he said it was definitely worth the effort. And so I'm glad it worked for you, Rick. Yeah, I should patent it. I should sell them. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, there's only one of me, and I just can't get to all of it. So, again, thank you for the nice letter, Rick, and thank you for watching my videos. Good luck to you with your new machine. We've got another email from Mark DeGennaro. He has a couple of questions, and they're kind of common things that come up, and so I thought I would address them. He said that in my recent build video, I put a strap button on the tail of the guitar, but I didn't put one on the neck heel. And he thought he would ask, am I in favor of tying the string around the peg head? No, I am not in favor of tying the string around the peg head ever. I think that's a bad idea. I never do that. I did, in fact, put a strap button on that guitar, the last build that I made, but I just didn't show it in the video. If you were holding the guitar flat against your body, I put it on the underneath side of the neck. So instead of putting it on the very end of the neck heel, I never do that either. I have the strap wrapped around the neck, and the button is on the bottom side of the neck. And that cradles the neck heel, and the back end then has the strap also. So that's how I do it. I've always done it that way. this mandolin is handy here to talk about that. So if this was a guitar, I would put the strap button down here on the bottom side of the neck, and it would wrap around and come around the neck heel. That's what I'm talking about. I don't put it on the back here. I think that's a bad idea also, because it pulls off and your guitar hits the ground. I never wrap them around up here. So that's a very good question. You can't have everything in the video, I assume, but that definitely was on that guitar before it left here. I did ask the customer if he wanted the strap button, because I didn't know at the time. I guess I finished the video. But we did put one on it, and that's where we put it. He also said he's not heard me mention pickups, and he's got some under saddle pickups, and he wanted to know if I'm in favor of those or not. Well, I walk a little bit on both sides of the fence on that. To be perfectly honest with you, if I had my druthers, I would never use an under the saddle pickup. Can they be used successfully? Do they work? Yes. But it's not my favorite way to do it, and there are other better options in my opinion. I use LR bags as my example because I, technically am an LR bags dealer, although I deal very minimal amount in that. Being in an all acoustic shop, we don't put that many pickups in instruments, although we do some occasionally. Anyway, in terms of the pickups that I prefer, it would be something like the Lyric Live would be an example of the LR bags that go up on the inside of the guitar. Some of their pickups have both. They have one on the inside and they have one that goes under the saddle. Again, I avoid the ones under the saddle. And you ask me why? Well, there's several reasons why. Number one, I think you get the best acoustic sound when there's nothing under your saddle. The sound itself transfers directly through into the top board. So, I don't want anything cushioning that transfer of sound. And that pickup definitely does cushion that transfer to some degree. Now, it works great when you're plugged in, but it doesn't necessarily work all that great, acoustically. So that's the first reason. But there's a bigger reason than that. And that is that when you put that pickup in there, that raises your saddle up in the slot. Your slot was cut to a depth for a reason, and that's to keep the saddle from doing this. Once you raise that saddle up, now it's going to do this, plus you've just raised your strings up, and you're going to have to cut the saddle down in order to keep your string height the same. So it requires so much extra work. And still, the saddle is not setting very deep in the slot, and it still has the tendency to do this, which can crack your bridge. Now, am I saying all bridges get cracked because of that? No, I'm not saying that, but it's something to consider. In my opinion, there's just better ways to amplify your acoustic instrument. And there's all those kinds of different pickups that work on the inside of the instrument, and I would do it that way if I had the choice. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. And then lastly, he was talking about I was using the Post-it notes to put on both sides of the frets, and he has something, I believe, he probably may or may not have got it from StewMac, I don't know, but StewMac sells the ones where they're metal with a slot in them and you put them on the frets and you go down there. Yeah, you could do that. I just don't find a need, and I've never done it. I'm not knocking it. I think it's a decent product. I'm sure it works. But, I work on all kinds and sizes of frets. Some of them are gigantic and some of them are tiny. And, the Post-it note works on any size fret, and it's pretty darn quick too. I mean, it's just about as quick as moving that metal thing. Maybe not, but pretty darn close. So again, Mark, thank you for the questions. I think they were good questions, and I think they're relevant to what a lot of people would like to hear about and understand. So I hope I gave good answers there. Thank you for watching my videos. I mentioned what you'd pay for this if you bought it from a different company. I won't say their name again. I just thought I'd let you know I've got approximately $7 in this, and that is, keep in mind, my math is not very good on video. I got $3 in this and $3 in this, and that doesn't quite add up to $7, but still it's about $7 because you got to figure there was tax. So anyway, that's all it costs to make that. It's going to be a very handy tool here in the shop in the future. My next email is from a farmer in North Pakistan. I think this is one of the cooler letters I've received in a while. His name is, forgive me, Pettit chisel bash. She'll put it on the screen. Sorry, I just don't know how to pronounce a name like that. But that, you know, us hillbilly Americans, we have trouble with any foreigner names. But anyway, I thank you, Pettit, for watching our videos. I really do. He's got a very nice complimentary letter here, and he says, after a long day of looking after his farm and his tractor, when he comes home, he often likes to watch my wonderful videos, he says. He wants to congratulate me on my talent and on my hard work and dedication. He says at home, his hobby is to pursue music, playing classical guitar and acoustic guitar. And he's got a Japanese guitar from the late 60s, he said. He doesn't think it's considered high-end, but it is made with quality material. Well, if it's made with quality material, it's probably high-end. Indian rosewood back and sides, so it sounds like a nice instrument. He says he's experimented with nuts and saddles. He says, but my experience has taught me it's best to leave the nut alone. You are 100% correct. Ding, 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 ding. You just won the $1,000 answer. That nut is the hardest thing to mess with. People are always saying, just put a new nut on it. Just, you know, you're really talking a major expense. The nut is the hardest thing to do. Well, I'm not sure where I left off there. You heard the phone ringing, and that call was from Jason in, I believe he said Hayward, Alabama. Definitely Alabama. He wanted to ask a few questions, and I gave him the best answers I could, but while I was talking to him, he said that he called Gibson about using the Renaissance wax and using the semichrome polish on the instruments, and they said it was a good idea. So there you go. You got it straight from the horse's mouth, third hand. But anyway, I have talked with Gibson. In fact, I actually worked with them on restoring an old acoustic electric before YouTube and having it re-gold plated and everything, and it worked out really nice. And I've talked to them a number of times. I've talked to Martin a number of times, and every time I talk to them, while I'm not quote-unquote an authorized person, they always tell me what I'm doing is exactly right. I've never had them once tell me that no, I wouldn't do it like that. So I feel pretty confident that what you see me tell you on your videos is safe to do on their instruments as well. So thank you, Jason, for that phone call. And now back to our farmer in Pakistan. So, you know, I was kind of joking there about, he said it's best to leave the nut alone, and I'm going like ding, 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 ding. You just won the prize, because truly that's the thing that people can really mess up, is trying to cut those nuts down is a pain in the neck. And, you know, people always say, just put a new nut on it. Well, it's not that easy. One of the comments in a recent video is, I just buy a pre-made nut. Well, that's fine, you know, and if you want your action, you know, an inch high and you can play it that way, that's fine. But if you really want to fine tune it, you have to adjust every nut, period. There's no option. It would be so incredibly rare to just get a pre-made nut, put it on your instrument, and have it work. I mean, it will quote unquote work, but will it work well? And so he's right when he says that he knows it's better just to leave the nut alone. You are right, because that's the thing that takes all the time. If I don't have to do the nut, I can do the setup in an hour, hour and a half, no problem. But if I have to do the full nut, then you're talking another hour, you know, and that's just for the nut. So that's another 80 bucks tacked on. And that's if everything goes well. If it doesn't go well, it could be longer than that. So I just wanted to point that out, that he made a very good point about the nut. So Pettit at the closing says, I have found your advice to be very sound, and he just wanted to thank me for that. So I thank you, Pettit, for watching the videos, and good luck with your farming there in North Pakistan. My next email is from David Sims. Thank you, David, for the email, and his question was about the jig I used to drill the holes in the mandolin peg heads. You know, you can see here, this is my jig. I cut it down here just for the thickness and getting the clamp on it, and then I clamp it down here too. But that guides my holes. You know, I've double checked it obviously before I ever started using it, and you can put your tuning keys through here and they don't bind at all. They work perfectly with this jig. So I know the jig is good. So his question is, how did I make the jig and get it accurate? Well, the truth is, I bought the original hole spacing jig from Stumac a long time ago. I don't even know how long ago. Gosh, a long time ago. And I was using it as an individual jig, and you would just clamp it down one side and then clamp it down to the other. And I thought, you know, it'd be nice if I just had it already made up into a block. And so I used a very hard wood, just hard maple. Hard maple is a real good wood for making a drill guide jig like that. And if you're careful, you won't waller the holes out. Whenever you're going to use a jig like this, by the way, for drilling holes, you don't want to clamp it to your table. Because if you do that, then it will force the drill to go down and you might be cutting the side off of your jig. You definitely want this to float so that as the drill goes down through, it finds its hole and it moves this around to get it in the exact right place. Now, you do want the jig clamped tightly to your peg head. You know, that part you do want. So anyway, the bottom line is that's how I made it. I bought this original jig from Stu Mac and I made up this. I have done something similar for the guitars. He asked me if I would make a video on doing that, but I'm not going to recreate it and make another one. It just is that simple, really. You just got to make sure you get it aligned up correctly, and the only way I can tell you how to line it up correctly is either by, you know, measuring another pre-made instrument or by getting the plans from, say, Stu Mac or somewhere else and following the plans and lining it up according to the plans. David, thank you for the question. It was a good question, and thank you for watching my videos. My next email is from Edward DeVito. Edward is from Ridgefield, Connecticut. Thank you for the email and the question, Edward. And his question is about chisels and sharpening chisels. I do have videos out there where I have shown how to sharpen chisels, but they're embedded in other videos. I think in the 225 series I may have shown it. That was a guitar build. I'm not sure that's probably not the one now that I think about it, because I probably showed the chisel in a mandolin build video and I don't recall which one it was, I'm sorry, but I did show how I do it. So I'll just kind of give you a recap of how I do it. First of all, I do a big part of it on the grinder, believe it or not, on a regular grinder. At least a 6-inch grinder. I would prefer a little larger wheel is better. 8-inch is great. I have a 10-inch presently now, and that's the one I use all the time. And you can get grinding wheels in fine or coarse, and I would recommend a fine wheel for doing chisel sharpening. If I was using something round to simulate the grinding wheel, being this, then basically you're putting your chisel on the grinding wheel like so. And the thing about that is that you want to, you know, maybe have a rest down here or something that you can hold the chisel to, and you move it across the wheel. So you move it across the wheel in a very deliberate and steady motion, very accurate motion. You don't put a lot of pressure on it. You just very lightly put it on there, in fact, and you go across very carefully. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, and I'm not exaggerating, I truly have. Sharpening was one of the very first shop things that I learned as a child. My dad used to have me sharpen all the lawnmower blades, and I got to be an expert at that, trust me. You will never find a lawnmower blade any sharper than the blades that I sharpen, trust me. You can actually shave with them. I'm not kidding. So you do this like this. Now the trick of it is, it's steady, even across. You don't go up and down, you know, you get it perfectly level and steady, even across. And you can do it by hand. You don't have to have a jig once you learn my technique. Now the technique is this. You watch the sparks coming off of this. You kind of keep raising this lightly. You know, I'm using exaggerated motions here. You raise this very slightly until you start to see just a tiny amount of spark coming over your blade. And when you see that very tiny amount of spark coming over your blade, you're right on the edge. And then you move it across very carefully and you get one continuous hollow grind all the way across. And if you look at this chisel, I think you can see up close that it has that one continuous grind all the way across. And then what's cool about that, once you do that and you get it sharp right to the edge, it is 2 minutes on a fine sharpening stone and you're done. I mean, it's that quick. Seriously, 2 minutes. What you do then is you oil your stone, of course. I use oil. So a lot of people use water, and you know, I don't care. I'm not going to argue about what's better on that. That's up to you. But anyway, you take a very fine stone rock it up until you feel it setting on that. And the thing about the hollow grind is that it only sets on the front edge and the back edge, because the middle has been ground out because of the curvature of the wheel. Even on a 10-inch wheel, and even on something that short, it will leave a hollow space in there. And if you look, you'll see it on that there's a place there that has not been honed. You can see the honing at the back edge and at the front edge, but the middle has not been honed, even on a chisel that small. And it will work every time if you do this correctly. And it's an easy technique. It sounds very complicated. It's not that hard, really. You can learn it if you just take your time. And it's so much faster and so much better than any other technique I've seen. I've seen people use all these techniques and they spend hours just laboriously honing their chisels. I seriously do it in about, start to finish, 2 minutes, 3 minutes per chisel. And I mean, that's, you know, I think an overstatement. I don't think it takes me that long, honestly. Anyway, so then you just take this and you just get that flat spot on there and you can feel it. I do it kind of in a circular motion. I know a lot of people are just insist that it has to be, you drag it backwards or you have to go forwards. I don't feel that way. Whatever works and you can get that edge honed works for you, that's fine. And I do it more or less in a small circular motion like that. And I just really watch that. And then I turn it and lay it down completely flat on the back, and I do it like so. And then I have a piece of leather that I have glued to a block of wood, and then I do just strop it like this, just like a, you know, a barber chair strop that they used to use in the old days, where they would, you know, sharpen their straight razor. And I say old days, I think they still do that a lot in a lot of places. But anyway, so then you just, you know, you just do this, and when you're done, I guarantee you, if you've done all that correctly, your chisel will just shave just like a razor. You don't need them any sharper than that. I mean, that's as good as it needs to be. So to me, that's your key to sharpening a chisel. Now, your other point addresses that you've been buying cheap chisels all along and doing that. Well, there's definitely a difference in, you know, a well-made chisel and a cheap chisel. If it's good steel, I don't care what the price is that you paid for it. If it's good steel, it's good steel. And if it holds an edge, it's probably good steel. And if it's one that you're just having to sharpen constantly, I'd throw the thing away and, you know, go get you some good steel chisels. Generally something made in the US or perhaps in England or someplace, you know, where they're known for quality tools and steel and things like that is the better way to go in general. I just bought this set of chisels and I'm really happy with it. Now, the reason I finally spent the money and bought some chisels is because of my apprentice Caleb. He inherited all my old chisels. Now, they're just a mixed match set of chisels and they're nothing. In fact, they're cheap chisels, but they were all made in the US and they're all good quality steel and they hold their edge just fine. So they work great. And I've used them for 30 some years. They've served me very well. So I have just recently bought these. I had problems spending a couple of $100 on a set of chisels, to be perfectly honest with you. This was 6 chisels, and I think I paid roughly $175 for it. And this is the Two Cherry brand. They're made in Germany. I gotta be honest, I think these are really nice chisels. I think they're great. And I was a little concerned about the fact that these are the longer chisels. I thought that might be a hindrance, but I'm actually finding that's actually helpful in a lot of times. So the long blade chisel like that, good quality stuff, I can't recommend it highly enough. I wish I would have bought these 30 years ago, to be honest. I wish I would have went ahead and spent the money a long time ago and got some really nice chisels. That's my recommendation. I'm going to stick to it. That's how I sharpen it. It's not that tough to do. I would say the 2 biggest tricks about sharpening are don't go crazy on your grinder. It doesn't take much. I mean, a grinder will take a lot of metal off fast. So, you know, these are high quality chisels, high quality steel. You don't need to cut a ton of it off of there. And you just very light pressure across, and you get where you get steadier and steadier, and each pass, take a look at it and see if you're getting one solid grind all the way across and how that grind is going. Of course, you want to try to keep it square. But then the second tip of that is that you watch that spark coming over the front leading edge. And as soon as that spark starts coming over that leading edge, you're right on the edge. And that works with your lawnmower blades, it works with chisels, it works with other kinds of sharpening that you need to do on the grinder as well. So I hope you find that tip very helpful. I take it for granted because seriously, I have been sharpening and using a grinder my whole life. It's something that's just second nature to me, like breathing. Thank you for the question, and good luck to you, Edward. Thank you for watching the videos. Our next email is from a username by the name of Dadahar2, D-A-D-A-H-A-R-2. I don't have an actual name here. Melissa may have some other insight that I don't have when she puts this video together. But thanks for watching my videos, and thanks for your note. He says he's a little late, but he has a picture here that I'm sure Melissa will put on the screen for you. When James Taylor played Neil Young's Gibson Bantar on the original cut of Old Man. So there you go. You know, we called it a Git Joe or a banjitar. You know, I don't care what you call it. It's still, in my opinion, it's still a novelty instrument. You just don't see them played very much. And, you know, it's when you want to have some sort of a unique sound. And one guy laughed at me because I said it's not a banjo. Here's my logic for saying it's not a banjo. Okay, a ukulele plays like a ukulele, right? So you would call it a ukulele. A mandolin plays like a mandolin. You would call it a mandolin. A guitar plays like a guitar. You would call it a guitar. That thing plays like a guitar. It does not play like a banjo. So it is not a banjo, in my opinion. It is a guitar. It just has a resonator body. It's a guitar, in my opinion, but it's a novelty guitar called a Git Joe or a, you know, banjitar. And I've heard it called both things myself. So when we made that original video, I just thought, you know, we probably were going to get a lot of comments that it's called a banjitar. Well, it is, and you know, I knew that already too. I should have mentioned it in the first video. So, thanks for the note, and thanks for the pictures there, and it's good to just reflect on a lot of the things and how things were being used in the past. And there was a lot of other people said that the banjitar was used on lots of other recordings and things. Perfect, you know, I think that's cool. It's neat that we can all share our information like that. So thanks for watching my videos. I appreciate it. The next email is from Bob O'Reilly. Nice German name there. Just kidding, just kidding. He says, I'm a one owner of a high mileage 65 Gibson J50. It has the original ceramic saddle. I wonder if an antler saddle would improve anything. Well, the answer is probably. You know, I think the antler would probably sound better than the ceramic, to be perfectly honest with you. I've heard instruments with ceramic saddles before. In my opinion, to my ear, ceramic is harsh. It just doesn't have the right sound acoustically for my ear, for me. You know, if you're used to that sound and that's the sound you like, you enjoy that sound, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just going to be different. So the antler will make it sound different, and in my opinion, it'll sound better acoustically than it would with the ceramic. And then again, it's on a case-by-case basis. Every instrument is different, and you just never know what you're going to get. It's like the line from the Forrest Gump movie, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, that's kind of the way it is when you start messing with things on your instrument. You never know really what you're going to get. But my bet is, from my experience, you'll like the antler sound. It will sound good to you. So Bob, thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for the question, and good luck to you. Got another email from Radu Lenaso, and I don't know how to pronounce that very well, but R-A-D-U-L-E-N-A-S-O-A-E, I believe is the way it's spelled there. And his question originally to me was whether or not he should finish the inside of his instrument. And I say, do not ever do that. You know, you got to think that 99.9% of the instruments manufactured in the world don't have finish on the inside, and that's for a good reason. If you've ever played an instrument, and I have, that was unfinished, and then played that same instrument after the finish applies, you will know the answer to that question immediately, because they always sound better without any finish on them at all. it's almost hard for me to put finish on an instrument knowing how much better they sound without it. But I never let a customer hear their custom-made instrument that I'm building in the raw, because once you hear it that way, you don't want finish on it. Trust me, it sounds that much better. It really does. So I stand by what I say. Don't ever put finish on the inside of your instrument. But he did send along a picture or two that shows finish on the inside of an instrument. So thank you, Radu, for following up with that. And I guess you just wanted to show me that there are people that do that. Well, I wouldn't recommend it, and I stand by my recommendation. Good luck to you, man. Thank you for watching my videos. My next email is from Wayne Rosenbaum, and he kind of wanted a little bit of a story of how I went from designing systems from AT&T to doing what we're doing here today. You know, how I got on the farm and all that, and he thought it would be an interesting story. Well, it would be a very long story if I told the whole thing, but I'll just give you some very quick highlights. I hope they'll be quick. And that is, you know, I grew up on a horse ranch and also in a landscaping business. My dad owned his own lawn service primarily. We cut well over 100 lawns per week. I started cutting grass when I was a very young boy, 3rd grade, 4th grade, somewhere in there. And believe it or not, and this is a true, 100% true story, my hand on the Bible, I got my job working for AT&T when I was in the 4th grade. And I'm not exaggerating. That is a true statement, a 100% true statement. And you think, how could that be? Well, I was cutting the executive vice president of Southwestern Bell's lawn. I was only in the 4th grade. My dad dropped me off there with a tractor and all the gear that I needed to do the whole lawn. Now, keep in mind, most of the lawn customers we had were wealthy people. We were in a very ritzy part of the St. Louis area, and almost all the lawns were huge. I mean, like several acres, many of them. They were more like estates. And so I was out there all by myself cutting this fellow's lawn, and it looked beautiful when I got done. Unbeknownst to me, he came up to my dad that evening when my dad picked me up, and I never heard the conversation, but he said to my dad, he says, "I've never seen a young boy unsupervised work that hard in my life." He said, and he did a great job, etc. Does he want a job working for the telephone company when he gets out of high school? And my dad says, "Well, heck yeah." Nothing more was ever said about it. It just so happened that that man was Ray Shockley, who had a photographic memory. And I'm not exaggerating about that. I mean, this man had a photographic memory. You've heard people talk about that. I got to know him later in life, and truly he never forgot anything, and every single detail he remembered. I've never seen anything like it. He knew more about my mom and dad than I did, because he never forgot a single thing. Just a cool man, really cool man. And he got into his position being the executive vice president of Southwestern Bell because of that, I'm sure. He was just a wonderful person. But anyway, 2 weeks before I graduated high school, he called me out of the blue. I didn't know the man. I swear I'd never met him face to face. And he offered me a job. He said, "I want to offer you a job working for Southwestern Bell." You know, and so I went to my dad. I didn't have any clue whether I wanted that job or not. You know, I'm just a kid, you know. And I went to my dad. I said, "You know, Ray Shockley called me, and he said he would give me a job working for, should I say yes?" And my dad goes, "Well, of course you should say yes." So anyway, I took that job, of course. I worked there 27 and a half years. Now, keep in mind, during that whole time, I still lived kind of that rural lifestyle. We lived on acreage ourselves. You know, we had a horse or two here and there, always hunted and fished, and I would still work on, you know, equipment and machinery and all that stuff in the background. I started building instruments in 1983 while I was still working for Southwestern Bell. One thing led to another. Then people started wanting me to repair them. Then people at Bell saw the instruments I was building, and they started ordering instruments, and so it just went on and on and on and snowballed. So that's how Rosa String Works was built. The main reason I started building instruments to begin with was because I simply just could not afford to pay, you know, at the time, $6,000 to $8,000 for a Lloyd Loar Gibson mandolin. Now, having experience that I have now, I would have bought 2 truckloads of them for that price. They are now worth, $250,000. So I should have bought one back then, but at that time, that kind of money was crazy amount of money. And it's still very expensive. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that that's a lot of money. I'm selling my mandolins now for $7,500. I feel like they're worth every penny. People say, well, why would you charge that much for one of your instruments? Just 3 components cost me $1,000, and that is the tailpiece, the tuning keys, and the case. You got $1,000 in it right there just to build it. Let alone all the time and the effort and the detail that goes into it. So I don't feel like my mandolins are overpriced. In fact, they're on the low scale compared to many of my competitors. And when you go out and look at my competitors and their high-end instruments, I'm 1/3 the price. 1/3 the price. That's the truth. So the rest of the story then, when working for Bell, I hired in at the bottom level. I was a service rep talking to customers. Customer service was my main thing, and they really did give you 6 weeks of intensive training on customer service back then. I don't think they do that these days, but back then that was the super important thing, was customer service. So I feel like that has transferred over into my business here, customer service. I've always tried to make that be the #1 thing. So that was good training at an early age for me. I worked there, and with my background of the horses and the machinery and working with my hands, I always felt like a square peg in a round hole working at Bell, because I always had an office job, always in charge of things having to do with customer service in the office. I was promoted. Then they one day asked, are there any volunteers to work on computer systems? We're bringing in computers for the first time. This was, I believe, 1986. I'm not really sure when that was. Instantly raised my hand and said, I'll do it, And so I didn't know anything about a computer, never had a lesson on a computer in my life, but I learned it by the seat of my pants working at Bell. And then I eventually worked my way into designing their biggest systems they had. Their Boss system, their Sword system, which those are names for the billing and order support system, Boss, and their service order distribution system, which would mean when you called and ordered a phone at that time, you would go through those 2 systems to process your order, basically. And I redesigned and worked on both of those systems. Anyway, that's how all that happened. And then, of course, being that square peg in a round hole, I was always looking for a way out, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I did the best job I could do while I was there. A lot of good friends there still to this day, but I just never did feel like I fit in. I always tried to get into the plant department and be working outside. That's where I fit in. That would have been my real niche. I did the best I could with what I had to work with, but one day they came and offered an early retirement, and I said, that's me. I was 46 and I took the early retirement. At a very early age, someone had made a suggestion that I put 10% of my salary into savings and invest it, and I did. And their plan allowed you to move your money into savings, guaranteed savings, and into the stock market, and you could do it once per day. So whenever the stock would go up, I'd move my money into guaranteed interest. Whenever the stock would fall and be below, I would move it back into stock. And that went up and down. And there were days, after a long period of time, don't get me wrong, but after a period of time, there were days where I would make $40,000 in one day on the stock market. That was back before it all became so volatile. But anyway, that was how I was able to retire early at age 46, because I had quite a nest egg saved up that way. And then it was only natural for me to buy a farm. The rest is history. I started the YouTube channel about 5 years ago or 6 years ago. There you go. That's how we wound up here today. I hope that was quick enough. I know that was kind of windy even in that, and there was a lot more to the story. Wayne, thank you so much for asking. Good luck to you. Thank you for watching my videos. And Wayne's just a little bit older than me. He says he's 68 years old. He's been watching the videos for years. He worked for Motorola in the 70s and 80s. And he said he installed the first cell system in the US. So we got something in common there, Wayne. Thank you again for the question. I think it was a good question. The next question is from Ronald Rogers, and he's asking about the Chili Dipper mandolins and the F-style mandolins. First of all, Ronald says that he enjoys watching my videos and that he was watching the K upright bass top repair again. That's 090, I believe it is the number on that video. Melissa will correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, repairing that top on that K bass was a real challenge, and he said it was like watching a miracle happen. I kind of felt the same way, to be honest with you. I didn't know that I was going to be able to fix that, but it turned out great, and she still plays that bass to this day, and that's been, I don't know, 5 years at least, probably. Something like that anyway. Anyway, he wanted to know about the evolution of those mandolins, and he wanted to know which came first, the chicken or the egg, the F-style or the Chili Dipper. And the Chili Dipper definitely was before the F-style. The F-style mandolin was created by Gibson in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and don't hold me to the exact date because I don't know. But around the turn of the century there, they started making what they called the Florentine style mandolin. Now, Lloyd Loar in the 20s refined it to what we know of today. Prior to that, they were made with the round sound hole for the most part. They actually had a third body point on them because they have a scroll and 2 body points today. They actually had another body point past the scroll originally, I believe. Anyway, and they had the oval or round sound hole, and then, now they have the F holes. The mandolins that are produced today, the F-style mandolins, are definitely the powerhouse of the mandolin world. There's no question about that. They outperform all the other mandolins significantly. Now, that's not to say the A-styles can't do the same thing. The A-styles that have the F-holes, they perform exactly like the F-styles. So, there's really very little difference there. But that round sound hole has a totally different sound. It doesn't produce the same kind of power. The Chili Dipper mandolin, because of that deep bowl back, it just doesn't punch the sound back out, and it doesn't vibrate very well. It's just got a totally different sound. It's great for different kinds of music, but it's not great for the kind of music that we play, which is the bluegrass, old-time country and things. But the Chili Dipper mandolin, I don't know when they were first built, to be honest, but they were built a long time ago, and he's asking which one descended from the lute. Well, I'm not sure there was a direct descendancy of the Chili Dipper from the lute, but certainly that one would be the one, not the F-style. Anyway, I don't really know the whole story on the Chili Dipper mandolin. Someone else may be able to fill in those blanks. Thank you, Ronald, for the question, and hopefully that was informative to some of you out there. The next question is from Ed Koch, and he's asking about lutherie tools, and he says that he jokes and says he has every tool known to mankind. He says, but he can't really say that if he doesn't have any lutherie tools. Well, we can help you with that a little bit, I suppose. Ed and I apparently have something else in common, and that is that he worked at Bell South. He said that he was in the plant department, which is where I always wanted to be, and I was in marketing, is what they referred to it as, which was basically customer service for the most part. Anyway, he says he knows about StewMac, but what other suppliers of lutherie tools are out there? Well, I know there's a ton of them. There really are, actually. Your best bet is to Google just lutherie tools for luthiers, something like that. Just try different Googling and you'll find a lot of them. But a couple that I can think of offhand would be LMI, which is Luthiers Mercantile out in California. There is Elderly Instruments up in the northern part of the United States. I can't remember exactly which town they're in, and I know it offhand, but I just can't think of her on video, sorry. But anyway, there's Elderly Instruments. There are lots of others. There's Violin International, I believe. There's a lot of smaller mom and pop type deals too. But your best bet is really just to Google it, and you'll find a bunch of them if you just use those words like that and change your Google searches around, because you'll find different things when you do that. So Ed, thank you for the question, and good luck to you on finding some good tools, and hopefully you can find some good deals. You can also, believe it or not, find them just loose ends out there on eBay. I do it all the time. I just look for something on eBay and often find a better deal there. Andrew Hirsch sent me an email with some pictures of a classical guitar that he's building. I'm sure Melissa will show you what that looks like. He said he's on his number 11th classical guitar now, and he has a picture there. He just wanted to thank me for my videos. He said he enjoys the way I work and my commentary. He just watched the broken head neck mandolin repair today, and he said that was an excellent job. That was one of my better repairs, I think, was the broken neck mandolin. If you haven't seen that one, I would recommend you take a look at it because that was a tough fix. So thank you, Andrew, for your email and your nice comments. And that looks like you've got some nice instruments going on there. Good luck to you. Aaron Simonson, S-I-M-O-N-S-O-N. He said that watching my videos helped him fix the bridge on a relatively cheap guitar, and that led to him working on his grandmother's ukulele, and his latest project is a Mandolin with a broken peg head. He said that the local repair guy in his area wouldn't touch the ukulele. He was scared because it was too old, and he said he didn't think then that he would want to work on the mandolin banjo that he's working on, which is got a date in it of 1897. When I said his latest project was a mandolin, I should have said mandolin banjo or banjolin. That was his latest project. And like I said, it has a sticker date of 1897 inside of it. So it's pretty cool that these instruments are getting restored. And thank you so much for watching my videos and your nice comments, Aaron. And good luck to you on future restorations. The next question is from Dale Pettit, or Pettit, or Pettit. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but P-E-T-T-I-T, Pettit is how I would pronounce it. Dale asked if I had a video outlining the cheater's neck reset. I think I've shown it in a video or two. I just don't remember which one, unfortunately. When you have nearly 500 videos out there, it's just ridiculous to try to remember where they all are. Anyway, I will tell you just quickly what the cheater's neck reset is. It doesn't amount to too much. Instead of taking the neck out of the neck block and steaming it out and all the work that goes into that, which is a ton of work, sometimes you have to remove the fretboard or at least the fretboard tail to get to the joint, to get it out of there. So instead of doing all of that extra work, if the seam around the back happens to be loose, or if there's no binding there where you can get a knife blade in and loosen the back from the sides, once you get that loose, you can just pull that neck down, glue it right back up, you're done. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it's way simpler than doing all the other stuff. So it's what I call my cheater's neck reset. Yes, you're torquing the sides a little bit like this, but once you glue the back to it, and you know, if you've got a good joint there and all that, you don't really have a problem. Sometimes you'll have to trim a little bit of your back off to make it match the new shape. There are some trade-offs, but it's a much faster, much simpler process, and usually even less destructive process than taking the whole neck out of the body of the guitar. That can really be a pain and time-consuming process. So I do the cheater's neck reset anytime I have the back off the guitar, meaning that I will, glue part of the back on there, and then I make sure that I get the neck at the right angle. And as a fact, you're going to see a couple of videos coming up in the very near future where we talk about the neck reset. I'm not sure I used the cheater's neck reset verbiage, although I think I did. You'll see it coming up in a couple of future videos. One of them is on that guitar I showed you right at the very beginning, that Gibson that I told you might be one of my best videos ever. I had to take the back off that Gibson, and you're going to enjoy seeing how I also then check the neck angle when I put the back on it, because you can really screw up an instrument if you don't check it very closely when you put the back on. So good question there about the cheater's neck reset, Dale. I hope that answers your question, and you will see it coming up in the future, I guarantee you. Richard Reisner sent me another email. Richard's been a big supporter of the channel for quite a long time, and he's also the one that sent me that number 20 gauge grown-up toy that he sent to me, that double barrel. It was a lot of fun. I'm still using that. That was a very nice gift to the channel there. Thank you, Richard. But Richard's question, or suggestion, I guess you'd say, is about how to get rid of rust and things. he is talking about using half acetone and half transmission fluid. And yes, I know about that trick. I have done it myself, believe it or not. You mix up half acetone and half transmission fluid, and you can put it in like a stuck motor. In fact, I restored my dad's Ford 4000 tractor. It's a 1964 Ford 4000, and the engine was froze up. It could not be turned. And I soaked it down with acetone and transmission fluid for about a month, actually. Eventually, we did get it to turn over, and we did get it to start, and I'm still using that tractor as of today. And I completely rebuilt that tractor pretty much from one end to the other. So yes, I am familiar with that trick. I have not ever used it on instruments, to be perfectly honest with you, mostly because I don't have the patience to wait on it. I typically just use wire brushes and things like that that are instant, you know, being on the clock and everything and trying to get work through the shop. You know, you just kind of got to keep things moving as fast as you can. But anyway, thank you, Richard. That may prove helpful to other people who are trying to get rust off of something or get parts that are stuck together apart. Thanks for watching, and thanks for continuing to support the channel. The next video is from Jock Webb, and he is living in Australia. Jock just wanted to thank me for the videos, and he said one of his closest friends was a luthier, and he watched him make guitars, and he could watch him for hours. He says he has done some very simple repairs on some of the school guitars where he teaches. They are all unanimous that tight bond rules. So that's great. He said he was blown away by my Washburn parlor guitar restoration. So if you haven't seen that video, I would recommend you check that one out. He said he loved my bow building video as well, and he said that him and his daughter and some friends were into the feeder rounds, and he said that gold looks pretty darn tiny at 70 meters and a whole lot worse at 90 meters. I can certainly relate. So we have something in common there. I've looked at a lot of gold bullseyes at 90 meters, which is basically 100 yards. It's the length of a football field, within about 3 feet. I certainly do relate to that statement, that's for sure. You really don't have an idea how tiny that little, say, 9-inch bullseye is until you go 100 yards away from it and you're trying to hit that with a bow and arrow. But anyway, it brings back good memories. Thank you, Jock, for the email. Thank you for watching my videos. Good luck to you, man. The next question is an email from John Stone, and John was talking about a tool that I use to remove the finish underneath the bridge, you know, when I'm cleaning that area there. And he says he's looking for a tool like that and cannot find one. Can I tell him about the source? Well, I'm pretty sure this is the tool you're talking about, and the source is me. It's just a simple tool that I made. It's just about a 1-inch round of aluminum. There is about approximately what it is. This was just a piece that was in the box. I didn't knurl this for this purpose. This was just in the scrap box, and it was already shaped like that. It already had this knurl on there, and I just used it. That knurl does nothing for me, really. But I did cut this slot here, and you can see the slot is not straight. It is at a slight angle. And then I left plenty of meat above it so that I could tighten this screw down, and that would tighten the blade in here. Now, this blade is just simply a little finger plane blade. Then I cut away a lot of this. That allows me to get down really low and close by cutting all this away. Why do I use this rather than just a regular chisel? Well, I could get by with a regular chisel. I like this because it has the round blade there on the end. You can see there that the blade is actually round instead of just square. That lets you get in there and rock, and you can just kind of rock that finish up like this. And it works really good. It works for me. You could probably do the same thing with just a regular chisel, but this doesn't dig in as much for me. I can get the finish off without digging into the wood with this really well. That's why I use it. I will probably continue to use it. It fits my hand really well. Having these two bevels on here gives me a place to put my fingers, so it's very controllable. But that's all it is, just a little round there with a blade stuck in it. Nothing more than that. Thank you for watching my videos. Well, as the old Johnny Carson skit goes, and Karnak would divine the answer from up here, he would also say, I hold in my hand the last you know, whatever, thunderous applause, you know, from the crowd because it was the thing to make fun of, that it took so long to get there and they were glad he was done. So you can do your thunderous applause because this is the last one. Email come from Ronald Rogers. He says, hello, Mr. Rosa. Hope your family are safe and well. I just tried the Phoebing's leather dye on a mandolin that I'm building. And he said, I installed the ABS plastic binding, which I gotta be honest, I hate that stuff. I really do. I don't like that ABS plastic at all for working on binding. These new modern binding plastics, that's the reason I've gone to real wood. I just hate that stuff. Now, the real wood has its challenges and problems too, don't get me wrong. It's not easy to put real wood binding on a F-style mandolin with that scroll, and I'm learning that the hard way because I'm doing it presently. But it can be done. So anyway, the bottom line is he says that when he bent the binding, apparently there was some stress cracks in the binding and the dye got down in those stress cracks and he's wondering if there's a way to get it out. Well, the truthful answer is I don't think you're going to be able to get it out very easily. You might obviously try alcohol and a little tiny brush and things like that, and you might get it to, you know, to lighten up a lot. But if there is a crack in the binding, then you're probably either going to have to put on a different piece of binding, possibly cut out that section and put a new section in there or something like that. I don't know. Those are just possibilities that you could do. But that really is one of the main reasons I've gone to the wood binding. I absolutely hate the modern plastic bindings. I just think they're pitiful. The old plastic, yes, it was hazardous material, but it was awesome material. You know, with our new safety conscious world that we're living in, and we all have to be safe from everything, we can't get that plastic anymore at any kind of a reasonable price. The hazmat charges that they add to those old bindings are just incredibly expensive. It costs you 10 times more than what the product cost you. And that's being conservative, because it's probably more than that, actually. Anyway, the bottom line is you're kind of on your own there, man. I'm sorry. That binding just isn't my favorite to work with. And if it does have a stress crack in it, then, you know, maybe you want to boil the binding and melt it really good before you actually try to bend it. By boiling it in water, it will soften up a lot and allow you to bend it fairly easily. I really didn't have too much trouble with it cracking. That wasn't my problem with the binding. My problem with the binding was getting it to stick, for one thing. Glues just didn't hold it all that well anymore compared to the way they used to hold. I mean, I know a lot of people would argue with me on that too and find a reason to say that this binding works fine for them, and that's perfectly okay. I just got experience with the old binding, and compared to the old binding, it doesn't work nearly as well. So I hope that helps you. Ronald, I'm sorry you encountered that problem, but that Phoebing's leather dye, it does wick into any place it can wick into, just like CA glue does. So good luck to you. Hope you're able to get that fixed up to your satisfaction, and good luck with your mandolin build, and thank you for watching my videos.